Right, living environment fanatics, it's time for today's daily Bellringer. And we've been talking a lot about the surface of the cell membrane or the cell membrane. And today we're going to dive more on what's going on the surface, especially when it comes to your lymphatic system or your immune system, which depends on the surface of the cell membrane in order to act. All right, so let's go. I'm back. So I hope you're happy to see me. And if not, thanks a lot.
All right.
Hey now.
Mr. Kovacs Class. It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
You might learn a ton.
It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
It's interesting too.
It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
And he's super cool.
It's Mr. Kovacs Class.
There it is, the old cell membrane model, right? I've got, well, you tell me. Good. And of course, the different types of movement through the cell membrane. Yeah, you tell me. Yeah, good. Membranes have embedded in them lots of proteins, and we're going to talk about some important proteins today when it comes to immunity. All right? Right, lots of proteins. We know some are channels, right? Some are transport proteins, right? But what's really interesting is some of the proteins that are involved in immune response, and we call those proteins antigens. All right. So antigens are like proteins that sit on the outside of the cell membrane, and basically identify a cell, what it is. In immune system cells, they have special proteins that can bind and recognize antigens. And that's how your immune system, in a nutshell, works. It constantly is checking the antigens, or the proteins sticking off the top of your cells, to make sure they're where they're supposed to be and doing what they're supposed to do. An example of this is blood types. Blood types are based on your antigen markers that are sitting on the outside of cells. Like if you have the A antigen, we can say you're type A, right? If you have the B antigen, we say you're type B. What that means is, if you're AB, you have both A and B markers on your cells. And if you're O, that means you don't have any, right? Right? So like O negative is kind of the naked cell. There are no antigens on the outside of that cell. That's one of the reasons why O negative is the universal donor. You can give that blood to anybody, and their immune system won't recognize it as anything because there's no antigens. All right, and that's also the reason why, like, if you need to know your blood type, because you're type A, right? And if you give your blood to somebody who's type B, they make antibodies that are anti-A. All right, we'll talk more about that as we go. That's of course how diseases and every time you survive a disease, you make antibodies for the antigens on those diseases. Every time you survive, you make the antibodies, and then you remember them. The way vaccines work is vaccines kind of trick you into making antibodies without having you have to actually get sick. So if you've had like the flu, like I just got my flu shot last week, okay, they gave me basically a fake version of the flu, and my body went crazy making antibodies for that. Right? And now when that flu actually shows up, I already have the antibodies, which will help disable the flu and I won't get sick. And again, we'll talk more about immunity as we go. We shift our focus from cell membranes to immune system, which is dependent upon cell membranes. That's why we did cell membranes first. But today we'll do Bellringer. Of course, you have Amoeba Sisters lesson on immunity and immune response. And yeah. All right, I'll see you after this Bellringer.